Here with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee. Coach, thanks for stopping by and taking some time for us. We're here at the Texas High School Coaching Convention. You've coached outside of the state, you've played outside of the state. What makes this area unique and that organization unique?
Well, I think the THSCA organization with Joe and Glenn it's second to none. It's top notch. We have something really special in this state. They're organized, they work well with UIL and all the coaches, and just to keep our game in the state, running at a high level. It's a lot more organized than what runs college football, if I'm being honest with you. So, and to your point, being in other states, when you see it done other ways, it makes you appreciate even more how the THSCA leads and how all the coaches in this state, they're just great. I mean, it's literally when you come to conventions like this, you feel like you're just talking ball with peers. It's not like college coaches and high school coaches, because that's just how good the high school coaching is in our state.
I was at the panel yesterday, and Holgerson talked about how he didn't recruit Florida anymore. And then you kind of mentioned that you had been at Miami and kind of seen that. How important is it for them to kind of keep control of the transfers and the open enrollment and that kind of stuff?
It's vital. I think it's funny you bring up Florida, and Dana did. Being at Miami for 2 years, in 2012, Florida changed their laws, and they started allowing the one-time transfer, really as many times as you want transfer in Florida high schools, and it's killed Florida athletics. The last 10 years, the coaches, the salaries, all the things have gone down, so it's harder to get good coaches. I think they had 28,000 total at all their state championship games. Think about what's at Texas just for one of the state championship games. And so I think when you start talking about the community feel and what makes high school sports and high school athletics great in any state, but definitely in our state here, I think we need to make sure that all of us are unified, both the college and the high school level, pushing back on any legislation that would allow a transfer in high school. It's just there's enough evidence to prove that it will within a decade kill what we now have in this state with the THSCA, and it'll also eventually hurt our colleges.
Yeah. I heard Chris Hummer ask a great question in there, and it was talking about how you put together a culture and how you build a team in this era of college football. How do y'all go about doing it?
It's tough. I mean, look, you've always built teams, but you used to build programs, right? And then teams within the program. And you still have a program, and you try to have a foundation, but you're really just building a new team every year. And obviously, we're kind of a case study for that right now. I think 71 of our 85 scholarship players on this year's team were not here when I got hired, which is just crazy to think about. I think we brought in 41 new players this year, but 25 still from the state of Texas, whether it's high school or transfers. But I think you got to have authentic relationships, and you got to be who you are. You got to be consistent. You got to be real. Players can spot a fraud from a mile away, and so that's what we do as a staff. We try to have a good staff culture and good cohesion that bleeds into our players. We do a lot of things as a team together. We call it forced family fun, because it's kind of like my kids. A lot of times they don't want to do it, and then you get there and they have fun, and they're like, "Oh, thanks for doing that." So, but just spending time together, having real authentic relationships outside of the football thing. And that's hard because we got enough going on in our jobs, but that's important. That as a staff we're connected, but as a team they're connected, and then they trust us. Because when you're trying to bring returning players, high school players, and transfer players alike to build a team in a matter of months, that's pretty tough.
I grew up here, and I was born in the 80s, and so I always had heard at SMU in the glory days, but they were behind me, right? And the death penalty and just growing that. And you were part of the staff when they won 10 games a couple years ago. How fun is it to be in that building at a program that has so much potential that feels like it's about to be unlocked?
Let's celebrate being born in the 80s for a minute.
There you go.
Because that's starting to feel really old. We haven't won an outright conference championship since 1982.
Yeah.
Like in my lifetime, shared one in '84 back. That was with the Southwest Conference days, and haven't won one since. To your point, we went 10-2 in 19, but there's so much history at SMU, but not in the last several decades, and we all know why. I think the last 5 years you can really see the momentum changing at SMU, and so I just think it's really exciting to be a part of it. And I've said this before, from Phil Bennett to June Jones to Chad Morris to Sonny. I got to be a part of some of that, and now me. I'm a benefit of all the work they did to get us back to this point. So it's almost like a pickle jar effect. And now we feel like we're finally in a position where we can go into a season feeling like, maybe we're not the favorite, but we can compete for the conference and try to do something that hasn't been done in 40 years. And I just think that we're right at that kind of cusp, as if we can break through, I think the sky's really the limit when you talk about we're the only school in Dallas, what's going on at our school, the success we've had, the facilities, the conference, all the things going on. It just seems like the perfect time. and we got to find a way to seize the moment.
How do you go about seizing that moment and having that roster not look at the expectations or the schedule or the new conference and just like week to week, we got to win these football
Well,
games?
fortunately for us, none of y'all picked us to win it, so that's excellent. We'll let Jeff answer that one. But, you know, I've been really pleased because I even knew in the spring, you asked the question earlier, like, we may have a better roster, but are we going to have a better team? So how do we get these guys to all come together and be a connected team in a short amount of time? And I was really pleased in the spring and so far in the summer the way the guys have done that. I think a lot of that's going to go on in August. But we seem to, one of the benefits of bringing in transfers, you take a Jonathan McGill, for example, from Campbell that was a senior captain at Stanford. You bring in those kind of, if you bring in the right ones, they bring a level of maturity to your team. And that's what it's felt like. Like they just go to work, they enjoy being around each other. And it's hard to do. It's hard to just worry about the process and not the outcome, because you have a goal. But that's what we're going to have to do, because it's hard. It's hard to win a game, whether you have expectations or not. And our non-conference schedule's tough. You know, so if we can get out of that healthy and still playing well with confidence going into our league, I like our chances. But it's hard. You know, we always get told it's coach speak, but you really do. You have to literally just work with what's in front of you that day, and that's what we're going to try to do.
SMU's always scored a lot of points. Like, you know, even Jude Jones, you listed all those coaches, a lot of offensive coaches, you yourself call plays. How do you go about fixing that defense, and do you feel like you've brought in the players that can help y'all do that? Yeah,
I think it's a double-edged sword a little bit. Like, we've played really good offense for a while now, and so that's exciting. That's kind of become our reputation. People want to watch that. That's great. But we go back to, we haven't won a conference championship in 40 years. We also haven't had a top 40 defense since we won a conference championship. Those things go hand in hand. I think in 2010 and 11, it was like 40th and 55th. Other than that, you know, and so I feel like with Coach Simons and that staff in year two, a lot of continuity. We have some good returning players, but we were very aggressive in the transfer world on that side of the ball. And we actually brought in 3 really good high school D linemen, but and a great high school linebacker and a few DBs. But we brought in, you know, I think about 11 guys that have played a lot of snaps in Division I college football, because we know that you can't outscore everybody, and that just, look, 40 years has told us that doesn't alone win you a championship. And if you talk to guys like Eric Dickerson, Craig James, back in the Pony Express days that got all the notoriety, they had a top 10 defense almost every year. And there's a lot of those guys that went on to play in the NFL. And so, you know, we know in order to win a championship, it's going to start with playing some championship defense. And I feel like going into this season, I can say that we got a chance to do that.
When you look at the roster, you look where you are right now going into year 2, do you feel like you're on schedule or where you wanted to be?
I think so. I think, you know, we did some good things in year 1. We can't go back and rehash the things we would have, could have, should have, but we did some good things with the roster we had. We knew we had some holes. And I feel like we went out and addressed that, both in the high school and the transfer world, to where I feel like we're going into this camp, like I said several times, with a better roster, with a team that's ready. We got a new quarterback, a lot of new faces that got to find a way to play together. We got to have things like we got to stay healthy and have some breaks go our way. Everything everybody has to have to win. But, you know, going into August, I feel as good as I can. Now we just got to go do it.
You got a pair of twins, like not just a set of, like,
pair of twins.
Yeah,
yes.
Pairs of twins.
Yes.
Right. What's more difficult, organizing a vacation or a road trip? It sounds like they're similar.
It's not if they're going, it's not vacation. I said this yesterday. Like, vacations when my wife and I go somewhere or we go with some friends. We took our kids to the beach last week. It's called a trip. That's an away game. And I mean, because that's the reality of, like, if you really think about it, there's a lot of parallels. Like, we're taking 4 kids, 12 and under, to the beach. We're literally taking our everyday life and taking it out of our normal environment and going to another environment that will quickly become hostile. And if you want to really throw something on it, add some in-laws, and now you really got an away game, right? And so you come back from those a lot more exhausted than when you went. So those aren't vacation, those are family trips, those are away games. We have a great time, make a lot of memories, and then we need to recover on the back end. So I would take 100,000 people with 1:50 to go, down 6, and the ball with 1 timeout any day over that.
Speaking of that, it feels like the coaching calendar is about as full as it's ever been. How do you go about being a good dad, being a good husband, and keeping that balance and showing your assistants that there's possibilities to do that as well?
That's a great question. I think personally for me, it sounds maybe weird, but your family has to be your hobby. Like, when you have time outside, like, I like to play golf. I don't play much golf anymore, you know. when you have time, you got to be present. You're not going to maybe have the quantity of time other people have with their kids, but you're going to have the ability to have quality time. And that sometimes is more important than the guy who's there all the time. And, there's things that coaches' kids get to do that other people don't get to do. That's cool. That hopefully balances out maybe some of the sacrifices they make. I think when it comes to the staff, I have to do a good job of creating those opportunities for them, encouraging that. Typically whoever your head coach is determines your quality of life a little bit. Yeah. And while there is a lot of pressures, you gotta be fresh, And so we other than just the few weeks in the summer, we try to build in windows for your family or you to be off and away, to build in that margin. So when we are in the grind that's about to start from August to basically February, you can still be somewhat fresh, because nobody's any good if they're on fumes and unhappy. And so it's a juggling act. I think we do a good job, because I think if you truly believe that's the most important thing, then you'll be able to do it. And I think if you just say that, but it's all about winning, it's harder. I think we truly believe that.
Just dawned on me, you're at the beach when they bring you that drink on the beach with the straw. What do you do with the straw?
It's an away game. Nobody brought me a drink.
Okay.
Like, I had to get the drinks.
Right.
I had to get everybody to the beach, and then my 7-year-old Scarlett's like, I need to go to the bathroom, right? Like, well, we just got here. Why didn't, So
you got a whole ocean right there.
Yeah, that's the whole, like, at Maryland when the knee was down and they called it a fumble thing. Like, that just happens at away games, right? But there's no straws. Look, you and I have talked about straws. They don't bring me a straw unless it's a joke. Someone gave me 2 straws the other day, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Absolutely.